Today's episode is brought to you by H&H America's 2025. Dive into creativity from May 7th through 9th in Rosemont, Illinois at the crafts industry's premier trade show. Connect with industry leaders, discover trends, and ignite your passion. And join us the day before the show opens for H&H University, a day-long conference with outstanding education and networking before the show. Thank you so much, and see you there. Welcome to episode 278 of the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals where you can strengthen your creative business, stay up to date on industry news, and build connections within our supportive trade association. Check it out at craftindustryalliance.org. Today on the show, we're talking about weaving with my guest, Jen Duffin. Jen is the designer and teacher behind Nova Mercury Design. Jen has been creating fiber art full-time since 2016, specializing in frame loom weaving. Inspired by color and whimsy, Jen loves creating art that brings joy to people's lives and homes. She aims to create beautiful heirloom artworks and to inspire a love of creating in others. She's taught many sold-out workshops in Montreal and Toronto, hosted online workshops to students from all over the world, and also has created a course with the online platform Domestika. Her signature rainbow art was selected as a finalist for the 2019 Etsy Awards, and she took home the Canadian People's Choice Award. Jen's first instructional weaving book, The Joy of Weaving, Modern Frame Loom Projects for Beginners, was published in September with Page Street Publishing. She lives with her partner, 2 children, and a dog in Montreal, Canada. Jen Duffin, welcome.
Hi, Abby. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. Your website and Instagram account are so beautiful and colorful, and it just like fills you with I don't know, good feelings when you see it. So I'm excited to talk to you about all of that and how you've created it because it's very inspiring. I wondered if you could start by telling us a little bit about where you grew up. Did you grow up in Canada and were you a creative as a kid?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for saying all that. It's really nice of you. And I definitely want to make people feel good with my art. And yes, I did grow up mostly in Canada, but I was a military brat. So my father was in the Air Force, so I moved a lot as a kid. I moved about every 3 years, probably, to a new city. So moved all over Canada, and I also lived in Europe for a few years as a teenager. But I've lived in Montreal for just over 20 years now, so this feels like my home. And yeah, I was a super, super creative kid, definitely very artistic, and really had a very similar aesthetic to what I have now. So I was into really, I've always been really, really into color. Color has always sort of been my muse and inspiration, I think. So even as a kid, I really gravitated towards really colorful toys, really colorful art. That was definitely my jam.
And were you into weaving or was it other kinds of crafts, like shrinky dink and polymer clay and making friendship
Yeah,
bracelets like the rest of us? Or were you always sort of into weaving from the start?
no, weaving was definitely something that only came my way as an adult, just in the last few years, actually. But no, as a child, I did, all the conventional things. So I drew a lot. I actually wanted to be like a cartoonist when I was a kid.
Ah.
I would say Jim Davis was one of my biggest inspirations. I was obsessed with Garfield. I grew up in the 80s, so that probably makes sense. But anything like drawing, painting, like really anything to do with, I made stuff. Like I would make my own toys and stuff too often. Like I would just cut out bits of fabric and felt and sew it together. I would make pets out of rocks and twigs that I would find in the yard. Like I was just always making stuff, I think. So very
Yeah.
imaginative person. I'm a big world builder. So my head, I was always just creating creating my own little fantasy worlds. Yeah. Kind of still
And
am, I
so,
think.
yeah, for real. No,
Yeah.
relatable. So when you got to high school, were you thinking, yeah, I'll be an artist and I'll go to art school? And is that the path that you took?
That's a great question. I did, I think, for a really big part of my childhood and adolescence want to be an artist, or it was one of the paths that I thought I would pursue. And I thought a lot about going to art school. I had some experiences that sort of discouraged me from pursuing that path. And actually, probably once I finished high school, I completely stopped making art and
Oh,
didn't make
no.
art again until my mid 30s.
What were some of those
Yeah.
experiences? Were you in an art class where like somebody discouraged you? Because that I've heard that from other guests on the show in the past where, they're
Mm,
in an art class and they're super excited about the first assignment. They make it, they show it to the teacher, and the teacher's like, you're never going to be an artist. And that's the end. So,
yeah, that it's so great because I've sort of like told myself that story for many years. I definitely had experience with one art teacher that I think impacted my trajectory. Um, but like my midlife brain is saying, like, I don't know that that's exactly what happened, but that's how I understood it as a teenager. I didn't have the easiest adolescence in some ways, so I was going through like a lot of big feelings at that time in my life. But yeah, I definitely just had some experiences that sort of put me on a different path. And I think in a lot of ways I felt like I wasn't good enough, which is a really sad reason to quit, because my perspective now is that everybody has a creative point of view that's valid. Like we all just have our whatever we make is great. So
yeah. Yeah,
yeah, I have a
which
very
comes with
different perspective on it now.
that comes with age and is a blessing actually of getting older, in my opinion, is that you
I
can
agree.
develop that point of view and embrace it. And not just about yourself, but about everybody, which is really
Totally.
so wonderful. But also relate to the feeling of being a teenager and feeling not good enough. So I think that is also very relatable. So what did you end up doing after high school?
Well, I'm somebody who tends to change vocations every few years. I don't want to say that I get bored easily, but I like trying new things and I like being challenged and I don't like sticking to just one thing. So, after high school, I tried a bit of college. I actually went into college for social work, which is something that I really thought I wanted to do. Ended up not finishing that program. And I actually just worked for a long time. Had lots of different jobs. I worked in retail management for a really long time, which has actually informed a lot of my business. Now it's been an incredibly useful skill to have. So I did a lot of that. I worked in like the nonprofit and community sector for many years. I love working with people, and I love working in community in ways that support people that need support. That's something I really like believe in a lot. And then yeah, I started my own business about 8 years ago. So I've been doing that for quite a while. And I also worked in the music industry. So I've done a lot of different stuff.
So when you were in retail management during those years, what were some of the lessons that you came to value now that you are an entrepreneur? Like, what are some of the things that you learned then through that experience that have come into play in more recent years?
Yeah, well, just like I think all aspects of running a business, because working in management, like I never owned the business. It wasn't mine, but I was responsible for all aspects of running it. And it was always like a client-based service. So I think I learned a lot about like great customer service and how to have happy and satisfied customers who will come back and see you again. So that's like a really big piece of it. But then all the other ins and outs too, of just a little bit of marketing, a little bit of branding, a little bit of like how to manage inventory. I have some good like business financial skills too that I learned through that. So um, it's just informed, I think, just my understanding of how to have my own business. And I always thought that when I started my own business, I don't want to say it was easy for me, but it came to me kind of easily, I think, because of that experience. I really feel like I just felt very comfortable stepping into a space where I would have to market and sell my own products because of that experience. I'm really glad that I had it.
Yeah, I mean, you'd already worn all the hats. And that's one of the things that I think is difficult when you become a small business owner is that suddenly, like, you may be good at a few of those aspects just naturally or through other experiences, like creating the product or doing the financials. Maybe, maybe you had life experience that helped that, but it's difficult when you have to wear all the hats, and particularly marketing your own work can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. But it sounds like you were able to sort of get into that state of mind because you had already been marketing, someone else's work, and you could see maybe your own work from a distance in that way.
Yeah, it definitely helped, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So how did you get into weaving? I feel like I read that it was something to do with a macrame plant holder.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, macrame was, I always joke that it was like my gateway craft to fiber art generally. So even though I had been so artistic as a younger person and was often making things, I had never really delved into fiber art or textile art. Like I don't even knit, which is probably like how most people get into that. Um, so I was wanting to make just some macrame plant hangers for my house years ago. And this was a time, believe it or not, when they were not everywhere like they are now. Now it's so easy to find them. But at the time, they weren't easy to find. And I decided that I would try making some. So I just did some searching for an online class. So I went on Creative Bug, which is just like an online platform that hosts lots of different types of classes. And I took a class by Emily Katz, who was the founder of Modern Macrame, which is no longer, sadly, but she did these amazing classes and she had a plant hanger class. So I took it and I made myself a plant hanger. And I just absolutely fell in love with macrame in that moment. This was like I was during my maternity leave with my second kid, so I was like at home, like momming full time, and I think it gave me a way to reconnect to myself, and just prioritizing like time for myself, learning a new skill, like all of that stuff felt really good. But there was really something about the repetitive nature of tying those knots over and over again that just soothed my brain. I have no other way to explain it. I'm somebody whose mind never stops talking to them, and I always have thoughts in my brain. So doing things like meditation or having mindfulness practices has always been very difficult for me. And when I was making these plant hangers, I could feel myself getting to this place of just sort of centeredness and stillness. And I just chased that feeling. So then I was like, oh, I want to make more. So I started making them for my friends. And then I took another class by Emily Katz, which was like a wall hanging class. So then I learned a little bit about wall hangings and I just really loved everything about it. And then once I'd been like dabbling in macrame for a while, I don't know why, but weaving to me just seemed like the logical progression, even though they're not all that related. But I think maybe spending time on social media and looking at different accounts for inspiration, I was seeing sort of a crossover between macrame and weaving. And actually, one of the ways that I started weaving was by incorporating it into my macrame. So I was combining macrame with weaving, which some people call macro weaving. Um, for real. So I would sort of make the framework. I would almost sort of it's sort of like off loom weaving. Like you would sort of create your own structure and loom with the macrame, and then I would weave in the spaces. So I did
I
that
see.
for quite a while.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And then yeah, it was cool. It was like a great way for me to just sort of play creatively. And then I ordered like a frame loom and some fiber from an Etsy seller. And I also took another class on Creative Bug for frame loom weaving. That one was with Annabelle Wrigley. She's known more for her quilting little pincushion studio. I adore her work. She's incredible. But I took her weaving class and it was just a done deal for me. It just stole my heart and I've never looked back. It's like and weaving was different than macrame because macrame I was really frustrated that I at the time all of the rope that you would order was like a raw cotton. So I started dyeing my own cotton because I was really trying to incorporate color into my work, which is what I always was trying to do. So I think weaving really opened that possibility for me more in terms of aesthetic and design with like color and texture. I could do a lot more with it. So
But it is more one dimensional. Like, in other words, it's flat. It's not, the thing with macrame, at least for a plant hanger, it's a three-dimensional object that's holding something. I don't know, were you
Yeah.
sad to lose that sort of like, roundness or whatever that macrame can have? You were happy to sort of switch over to the weaving where it's flat and more
Yeah.
texture, but it's still flat.
Yeah, I think it was really
Not one
yeah, that was
dimensional, two dimensional is the word I meant to say. Not one dimensional.
I
That's
I
something
knew what you
different.
meant.
Okay. Sorry.
Knew what you meant. Yeah, no, I don't think that making like an object was the appeal for it, like of it for me. I think it was really um I mean just making something, right? But I think with weaving I felt more like I was really making an art piece. I was able to express myself more artistically, and um weaving has a lot of illustrative capabilities, but it is more two-dimensional, although there are folks who can do like you can do like more three-dimensional stuff with it. But no, I've been doing it for 8 years and I never get sick of it. I just love it so much.
So, tell us a little bit about what a frame loom is, because I'm sure when you're out in the world and you meet people and they say, "What do you do?" and you say, "I'm a weaver," they're imagining a one of those huge looms, maybe, with a shuttle and like,
Yeah,
and a frame loom is a loom, but it's a different sort of loom. So I don't know if you can talk to, just somebody who might be a little bit newer to weaving about those differences.
sure. Yeah, and there's so many different kinds of weaving, and so many different ways to weave. There isn't one way, and even if you're using the same equipment, there's still like a variety of ways to use that, and like ancestral and historical traditions around the world around weaving. It's a craft and a practice with so much history and depth to it. But yeah, a frame loom is essentially if you just picture a frame, so like a wooden frame with four sides, sort of like a picture frame, and it would have like notches or teeth on at least two of the ends. So the top and the bottom would have notches, and then you would just string your warp, which is I always refer to it as sort of the base or like the skeletal structure of the weaving across. So it's the most accessible way to weave. It's the easiest way to weave if you're interested in learning how to weave. Frame loom weaving is to buy a frame loom is very inexpensive. You can make them. You can buy a picture get a picture frame and hammer some nails into it, and that will work as a loom. I've made children's looms out of cardboard. Like it's a really easy way to learn to weave. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I think I love how accessible it is and also love the long heritage and it's across all cultures. I mean, weaving is really something that human beings have been doing for a really long time. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
And that allows you to have endless things to learn, which is one of the beauties of a craft. So, and you specialize, I feel like, in using very textural, very colorful, but also like really textural, um, uh, fibers to weave with. So, when you look at one of your pieces, there's like, poofy parts and more flatter, parts. So talk a little bit about the fibers that you're using, what you prefer, what you've learned over time about the kinds of fibers that work and the kinds of fibers that don't work as well and what you prefer.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, and it's sort of like dovetails nicely with what you were just saying about like weaving having so much history and there's so much to learn because like I feel like it's this bottomless well of information, and I'm actually not that technical of a weaver. My technical skills are um limited, but I think that's more because that's not what interests me about it. I'm maybe more interested actually in like materials and how I use those materials together. But for myself, when I started out, something I'm really glad that I did because I don't like doing the same thing all the time is I did a lot of experimenting. So I tried weaving like a lot of different styles, a lot of different techniques, and I tried a lot of different fibers to weave with. So um, through all that experimentation, I've sort of found like my own voice and what I like and what works for me. But I always say to folks that, what works for me or what I like might not be what you like. But I tend to work mostly with wool. So mostly natural fibers. I love wool because I love it for a lot of reasons, but it can be produced very sustainably, and it's just a beautiful fiber. It has so much natural texture to it, and a lot of the like poof I use is wool roving. So that's basically just unspun carded wool. And it's really fun to manipulate, and you can do a lot of cool effects and cool textures with it. But I would say that's it. Like I have sort of my favorite fiber suppliers that I'm like loyal to, but I do always still like trying um, new materials, and I think it's a really fun way to expand your creative practice is even just by experimenting with different things.
Today's episode is brought to you by H&H Americas, and I have Darren Stern here from H&H Americas to tell us more. Hi, Darren. So I'm super excited for H&H Americas. This year, we've got some new things coming your way. One of them is H&H University.
Absolutely. I'm completely excited for this new development that we've been working on together and that you've had your committees giving input on. And it's a evolution of our masterclass program to just completely add more value and a stronger experience to help businesses improve.
Yeah, it's going to be a full day of education the Tuesday before the show. So that whole day, we're going to have several different tracks for different types of businesses, expert teachers, networking in small groups. So you're going to form new relationships and really learn and come away ready to tackle the show.
I love the multi-touch approach that it's going to bring to people.
Absolutely. So H&H University, look out for that. Tickets are going to go on sale February 1st. So mark your calendar.
Absolutely.
And we've got another new thing coming this year too, which is super fun and exciting. And it's called H&H After Dark. What is that?
So, yes. So we are expanding the overall offering that we have at the show and the experience and the entertainment and the networking opportunities and the fun and the inspiration. Thursday night is going to be H&H After Dark. So we are across the street in the entertainment complex, the Parkway Bank Entertainment Complex there in Rosemont. There's a facility that is going to be set up for dinner, dancing. There's VIP suites. There's outdoor seating area. And the coolest part is that we have a special price and a special opportunity for the Craft Industry Alliance members, and the tickets will be limited. There's only going to be 500 seats available, so there'll only be 500 tickets. So those will also go on sale February 1st when the tickets go up. So please watch out for that. And we will be publishing more information. And the whole night has product giveaways, photo booths, a number of really cool entities happening that night.
It's going to be super fun, chance to hang out with your friends at the show. So we'll see you there. Thanks so much, Darren.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, H&H Americas. And now back to my conversation with Jen. And when you teach classes, to adults who are maybe coming for the first time to try frame loom weaving or just to try weaving for the first time ever, do you find that people have that hesitancy to experiment? I think it's interesting that some of us feel like dive right in and try all kinds of things, and maybe it won't work, but maybe it will, and it's totally fine. And then I think there are students who come in and really want to be told the right way, and are very worried about messing it up. And I don't know if you've encountered that and how you help people to sort of loosen up or get over that sort of preciousness.
Yeah, that you're right on because you definitely got like all sorts of people in classes. And I've been teaching for like a number of years now, so I love connecting with folks so much around weaving. And most of my classes are beginner classes. So most of the folks coming have not woven before. My teaching style is really geared towards, I always like to say to my students that I want to be like a vehicle for them to learn sort of give them the toolbox that they need to do the craft. So sort of the techniques and the parameters, but the creative direction comes from them completely. And also, I like to always express to folks that there isn't just one way to do things. So even with weaving, like I might teach one technique one way, but there might be multiple ways to do that technique. And if you learn from a different weaver, you might hear something totally different, and that's okay. I also think weaving is really intuitive. And if you have an idea about how to do something, just go for it. And, worst case doesn't work out because again, like I'm using quotations, but like failure is a part of learning process and you can't learn without it. So I think because I frame my classes that way and I sort of introduce them that way, I hope that that puts people at ease in my classes to not feel like they need to be precious about things, because um, I really do try to express the beauty of things being handmade and being made by their hands. And I always say too, I'm like, if this is your first time doing it, it's not going to look like mine. I've been doing this for almost 9 years, right? So, and like the wonky bits and the bumps are all just part of your process, and it's beautiful, and like try to embrace that. And people come from different perspectives. Sometimes, like, I might have a student in my class who's somebody who doesn't do a lot of artwork and doesn't have a creative practice, and it's maybe something they want to get into, or they just want to try a creative class to see how they like it. So sometimes people like that are maybe more reserved and a little bit more timid or nervous, and I just try to give them as much support and encouragement in the class as I can. And for those folks, I can provide like a real step by step, and I'll teach a pattern and they can follow my pattern precisely, and I'll walk them through the whole process so they feel really supported through the whole thing. And then I might have in the same class, I have another student who goes to all the crafting classes and does all the crafts, and they're just like not taking it that seriously. And they're like, this is great. And that student, I'll be like, if you want to go off on a direction and do your own thing, like go for it. Like I'm here to help you through that as well. So I do always teach a pattern in my class, but if folks want to deviate, like I'm good with that. And it's always just a lot of fun. I'm really lucky. I have the kindest clients and students. I've just had the best experiences connecting with people around weaving.
And I think one of the attractions to taking a weaving class for adults is that you don't have to be good at drawing. I think that there can be a feeling among adults like, well, I want to do something artistic, but I can't draw, so I can't, But the thing with weaving is like, it's abstracted, it's straight lines, it's in and out, over, under. And if you can't, you're not good at rendering, it's no problem.
Totally. And I think it's a very accessible craft. I think it is for all sorts of people. And I think the tactile nature of the craft is really a beautiful piece of it. So getting to just handle your materials and playing with the fiber, it's a craft that children can learn and really excel at too. And like I said, I feel like it really promotes mindfulness and this presence. I think any art practice does, right? You're just sort of in the moment with what you're doing, but weaving is just so transformative. I witness it with every class I teach. People always come out of it, and I can tell that they've been like a little bit changed by the experience.
And one of the things you've done is you've developed a loom that you sell. And very appropriately, it's called the Sunshine Loom, and it is bright yellow like sunshine, and brightly colored to match your brand as well. And it looks like it's cut from like acrylic. It's not made from wood; it's made from like an acrylic, and maybe produced locally. So tell us a little bit about the idea to produce and sell your own looms in small batches. They're small. They're like little, that can go into a kit and that sort of thing. And sort of the process of developing that product, I'm sure there were some ups and downs along the way.
Yeah, well, those looms, the Sunshine Loom is a newer product that I just launched just a couple weeks ago, and that was a collaboration with my friend Michelle Chasson. She has a company called Roving Textiles. She's also a weaver, and her dad have this business where they hand make wooden looms. So all of my bigger frame wood looms are all from her and her dad. I love them. I recommend them to everybody who takes my classes. I say, if you want to invest in a loom, these are beautiful. They're just made in Ontario, which is pretty close to me. And Michelle was trying to come up with a smaller project loom to use like for kits and workshops. So this was actually her design. But we have been talking about collaborating for years because we work really closely on a lot of stuff. And I used to sell looms that I had designed previously, a very similar, like just laser cut loom that I had stopped selling probably about a year or two ago. And when she cut these looms, I just love them so much. And we decided to collaborate. So it's a little collaboration between her and I. And it's exactly that. It's a little 8x10 loom. So it's just a perfect size for like a class, because my weaving classes are only about 4 hours. Weaving is very slow. So for anybody who doesn't know that, it's a very slow craft. It takes a long time. So we can't do like big pieces in a workshop because it would take days. So Just a little small project loom is great because you can learn all of the techniques on that loom and just make a little small weaving with it. And then you get to take it home after, and then you can keep using it over and over again. It's a great size. It can just fit in a purse. You can take it with you in the car. You can put it on your lap while you work on it while you watch TV. So it's a great introduction to weaving. But because you can only make a weaving as big as your loom, it's a great starter loom. But then if you want to branch out and start making larger pieces or more elaborate pieces, you would need to invest in a bigger loom. But it's like a $40 Canadian price point. So it's really, really affordable and like a great entry level loom.
Right. Okay. That's great. And then we mentioned in the intro that you have taught a class. So it sounds like you took a bunch of classes through Creative Bug, which were really helpful, in fact, instrumental in launching your business because you learned all these different skills that you were then able to put into play to figure out your own style, your own craft, what you wanted to do. So you've taught an online class now with Domestika, which you can maybe tell us a little bit about that company. It's different from Creative Bug and similar in some ways. So tell us about that experience and what it was like for you, what you learned, because, being on camera, it's different. It's not, it's not the same as teaching to a group in a room where they can say, wait, what did you say? I didn't understand. You're teaching to a camera. It's a different experience.
Yeah, it's completely different. But I'm really glad to have had like all of the in real life teaching experience because it really informed my class as well. And I think it was so helpful because I always make my classes from the perspective of a teacher, like my real life teaching experience. And prior to doing the course with Domestika, I had produced my own weaving e-course so that I filmed in my studio with a friend of mine came and filmed me, and I had written that whole class by myself. It's like a 45-minute class. But when Domestika contacted me, I was really interested because they're like a larger company and they have this platform. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. What is it going to be like? And I honestly had the absolute best experience working with them. They hook you up with like a creative director who is sort of your like main buddy through the whole, they see you through the entire project. And they send you like these Google Doc files. You have all these forms to fill out, but it's really comprehensive, and they want you to include a lot of like extra information. So sort of like your inspirations and like mood boards, or like how do you source your fibers, other artists that inspire you, so that I think people who are taking the classes on Domestika are really getting like a really comprehensive class from the artists. They're very, very high quality and well produced. So you work on your script and all of your materials for weeks and weeks leading up. And then they fly you to their studios. They have their own studios. So I was flown to New York City and I was there for a week, and they put you in. So your creative director is there. And then I had a whole team. I had like a director of photography and a camera person and a sound person, and they were amazing. I had the most fun. Like it was just a riot. I had such a good time. They were the nicest people. And they build a studio for you that's all personalized how you want it. It's so cool. And I'm really shy about being on camera, but because the team was so amazing and professional, I was so comfortable the whole time. And I think it went super, super well. I'm really, really proud of that class.
And I think one of the things you realize when you film an online class is like you're not the only one there performing. So the guy who's filming the B-roll and the person who's filming you and the mic guy and all the different people who are in the room who are helping to make this class happen, they're all also doing their job and also mess up at times and have to start over again and things like that. So I feel like it's kind of comforting because when you are a little bit shy to be on camera, it's like everybody's looking at me and it's all about me having to do this right the first time. And it's like, no, actually, this is a whole team of people and they're all working on it together with you.
Yeah. And I never ever felt stressed out. And it's so funny because I'd actually shipped all my materials there in advance and my shipment was late. So we were supposed to start filming on the Monday and my materials were not there. So we had this whole situation and we had to find the materials and get them. So we lost a day of filming, which normally I think would have thrown everybody off. But my team was so professional, and I think I was really professional about it. So the next day we just got to work and we filmed the class in 4 days instead of 5, and it was great. It was they're so organized. I think and I'm really organized and I love having a lot of information. So I also think that helped me to feel really secure working with them, is just how how well coordinated and organized everything was. It was such a good experience.
And you said in a recent Instagram post that you just recently were evaluated or in some way diagnosed with being neurodivergent, and that's been really informative for you about the way that you work. And I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about how that's impacted your sort of self-discovery.
Ooh, we might need a whole, whole other podcast for that, Abby. It's really, really wild. It's funny because I'm my birthday is next week and I'm about to turn 47. So I'm like a little later midlife, and I never suspected that I was neurodivergent. So I'm somebody I I'm trying to remember where I heard this phrase, but I heard the like kid to parent pipeline for neurodiversity. So both my kids are neurodivergent. So once we found that out, it was like, okay, well, the odds that the parents are very high. So I started looking into it for myself. And what like knowing this about myself has done, it's just really, I think, helped me understand a lot of things about myself that mm, not that I didn't understand before, but maybe just I obviously don't have a well articulated thought about this. Um, just help me like I think just see myself in a different way, and maybe some things too that I thought were like personal like failures, but like
Yeah.
quirks or things that have been kind of like a little sticky or a little difficult in my life. It was really illuminating. I will say the process of like finding this out about myself has been pretty emotional too. Like it's
Hmm.
to learn this about like myself at this age has been really
Yeah.
interesting because it does really affect how I see the world, and it I think obviously very much affects my art and how I understand my art practice and what inspires me and why. So I'm still working through it. I feel like it's a bit of a journey, and I'm still like very newly on it. But yeah, it was really through my kids that I realized that. But
Yeah. And I think of all the people who never get to realize that about themselves, even throughout history, who had various struggles and as you said, sort of accounted them to being personal failures, when in fact it really is just about the way your brain perceives the world and what it does with those perceptions. And it's really, I think, an informative thing to understand. Just the better, I mean, self-understanding is always a good thing. But yeah, I think it's a blessing really to get the information and be able to think about it and yeah, take
I
action based on it.
totally yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's interesting because like I feel like self-understanding is one of my like special interests, which is often the case with a lot of folks who are neurodivergent. So I feel like one of my big interests is psychology and like self-understanding. And I've always been on this quest to like understand myself and really honestly felt like there was a piece is missing of like, I'm like, what am I missing in all of this? And this was the piece where I was like, oh, everything just makes sense.
Yeah, that's
So
wonderful. I'm so glad for you. And tell us about the name Nova Mercury because that's like the name of your website, maybe the name of your business as a whole. So where did that name come from?
it's actually my daughter's name. So
Oh,
I
beautiful.
yeah, I started my business. I started making art and doing all of this right after she was born. And my kids are like a huge source of inspiration for me always. But it was really sort of through after her birth that I sort of got back in touch with like my artist self. And so I named my business after her. I also love her name. I've had like mixed feelings about it in recent years because like she's 9 now. So I'm like, is this gonna get weird for her? Is like she not gonna be into this, or is it, like I didn't I didn't think about it as much, I think, when she was little. And now I'm like, oh, so I ask her about it often. And I've actually thought about rebranding my business too, just to be my name, just because I'm the artist and the person. People always think my name is Nova. It's not. I'm Jen. So, but she says she still doesn't mind and she likes it. So I'm going to leave it for now, but maybe in the future it'll change. But yeah, that's really it. It's her name is Nova Mercury.
And I love your website. And if anyone's listening and hasn't been to the Nova Mercury website, you should go check it out because it is so clear and it's brightly colored. It's not like it's all white space, but there is a lot of space for your eye to rest and for you to take in information in smaller chunks without a ton of text overwhelming you. And it's very sort of brand consistent. So if you flip over to Instagram, you're in the same place. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you that I think your website's very beautiful. And, we all see a lot of websites, but not all of them sort of stand out as being just easy to use and clear, as yours does.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I have to give once again my friend Michelle from Roving Textiles a shout out because she helped me design the website. I get so frustrated with technology when I don't know how to use it. It's a big barrier for me. I'm like not um I definitely can use technology, but I've had the building of the website was a little bit of an uphill climb for me. So yeah, Michelle helped me a lot, but I'm so glad that you like it. That's really nice to hear. And I do all of my own photography. So I think the aesthetic between like my Instagram and the website makes sense because it's all of my pictures of my art.
And you have over 130,000 followers on Instagram, at least the last time that I took a look, which is a
Yeah.
lot of followers. So, I mean, obviously, photography must be something that you spent a lot of time learning or maybe are passionate about as well. But maybe you can share some of your approach to Instagram if you have a strategy there or just how you think about posting on that platform.
Yeah, well, Instagram, I will say, is like a huge, huge part of my business. It has been since the beginning. Um, it's funny because when I started out doing this, I have always been very shy to share my art publicly. And when I started, I gave myself a bit of a challenge where I would start like an art account and start sharing my stuff. So even when I was dabbling with the macrame, I was also painting and drawing a little bit. So I just started putting my stuff out publicly. But to start with, it was mostly my friends looking at it, right? And um, as my business and my practice grew and became more consistent, so did my Instagram account. So I think pretty much since I decided that I was like launching my business in 2016, I have posted pretty much every day since then, which is wild when you think about it. And when I was starting out, it was the days back when like growth on Instagram was really organic, right? So I would just naturally get followers from sharing my art every day. It was also it's a visual platform, so if you're a visual artist, I think it lends itself very well to being on Instagram. And my art is really colorful and really eye-catching, so that draws people's attention. Um, I'm totally just a hobby photographer, but I love photography a lot. I really love it. And I'm a total just like, I have a nice camera, but I mostly just shoot on my phone. It's all phone now. I edit everything on my phone. I post from my phone. It's like my phone does everything. But yeah, I've just been really consistent. And my favorite thing about Instagram, honestly, is like the community of people I have there. The fiber community is very active on Instagram. There's a ton of weavers on Instagram. I've made friends with people 8 years ago that I'm still friends with now. Yes, I have obviously parasocial relationships, but like these are people I DM with and chat with. Sometimes we talk on the phone. I've met some of my friends in real life too. We've met up, which is super cool. And I am so lucky that my social media experience is just overwhelmingly positive. The folks who follow me are just a lovely group of people, and it's been a great way to promote my art. I sell a lot of art from Instagram too. I definitely get a lot of opportunities from being on there. I know it's tougher now. Like if you're getting into it now, I think it's a much different landscape. Obviously the climate online is very different and how the algorithms work are completely different. But I honestly don't spend too much time thinking about it. I just show up and I'm myself in my own little corner of the world, and I don't think about growth or reach very much. I don't check my stats. I don't do any of that. I'm not a very good business person in that
Well, that might
regard.
be the trick. That might be the trick to being a good business is just not being so worried about it.
I think a lot of it is just about protecting my peace too, which is really important to me. Also, I'm older, so I'm just like I'm doing my thing. I'm so lucky. I have amazing clients and just kind people in my space, and I don't. That's all I need. I'm good. So
And I want to talk about this book. So I wondered whether writing a book was always a dream or, in the grand plan, long-term plan. To me, when I look at your book in the context of the kits and the sunshine loom, the commission work, the completed, work that you can buy, that you've created, it seems like almost one more piece in the puzzle, like the online classes. It's like if you think about like a portfolio of things that sort of present your craft to the world, those are all component pieces, and a book fits right in there. That you can use to teach. You can. There's so many things that you can do once you have that book, and the way that it looks matches up with everything else as well. So it all seems like of a piece, I guess is what I'm saying. So anyway, tell us a little bit about how you think about it, how it came to be.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. I'm glad it comes across that way. The book was just like a dream opportunity. I had never set out to write a book. I was contacted by a publisher, so they reached out to me and asked if it was something I would be interested in. They actually contacted me like probably like February 2020. So probably about 2-3 weeks before everything shut down. So it was kind of a wild time. And the writing the book was a journey because of it. But they reached out to me and I was just absolutely thrilled and excited for the opportunity. I mean, I feel like writing a book is like a bucket list thing. I'm like going to be a published author. That's amazing. And I don't consider myself a writer, but I've done a lot of writing in my life in other contexts. Like prior to doing this, I was a full-time grant writer for 4 years. So I do a lot of writing for other people's creative projects. So, and writing comes pretty easily to me. What doesn't come easy is pattern making. So that was something I really that was a real challenge for me because my art making process is very intuitive and organic. And I'm not a pattern person. I'm not like a math step by step counting things measuring. No, that my brain does not like to do those things. So but it was a super good challenge to be able to do it. And again, I think having years of teaching experience really informed my book because um I'm sure there's people who write books who don't teach and who are great at it, but I know for me it helped so much to have that teaching experience because not only was I thinking through about how to um teach people weaving, but I was like, if I was a first time weaver, what would I want to learn? Or like, what are some of the troubleshooting that you need to do? Or like questions that often come up in my class. So the book is like a really comprehensive overview of weaving, frame loom weaving for beginners. So it'll walk you through everything you need to know about frame loom weaving from the basics to like choosing a loom, your tools that you need, your materials, different fibers. I talk about color and composition, basic techniques. And then I wrote 12 patterns. And each pattern is really different because I wanted it to represent like a kind of different skill set or a different approach or a different aesthetic. So I would say the patterns in the book are not all representative of my weaving, but more like what I would want to learn or what I would want to communicate to somebody. But because of the pandemic times, it was like a 4-year process writing the book. Took me a really long time. Shout out to my publishers at Page Street who were so patient, like the most awesome people. There was a moment where I think they were about to give up on me, and we persevered and got it done. And it's so beautiful, and I'm so proud of it, and so happy that it's out in the world. It's been really well received so far too, so I'm really grateful for that.
And again, the book is called The Joy of Weaving Modern Frame Loom Projects for Beginners. So if folks want to go add that to their holiday wish list, you should go do that now. And yeah, definitely get a copy. So I just wanted to touch briefly on the custom work that you do. So you do take on custom commissions. And I know for a lot of artists, that can be very challenging because sometimes the company or person who commissions the work doesn't have a solid idea of what they want, or they change that idea sometimes multiple times during the process. And it can be very time consuming to keep up with all of that and frustrating as well. And you can also end up losing money on it by having to invest so much in those changes. So I wondered if you could just speak briefly to the boundaries that maybe you've come to set up to be able to make these custom projects successful for you as a business person and as an artist?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I've actually shared some of these things with other artists I know on a like one-to-one basis because I do sort of have a process for my custom clients. I will say that again, I don't know what it is, Abby. I'm just really lucky, maybe, but my clients are amazing. I've mostly had just really, really positive experiences doing commissions. Um, a lot of the time, I find when people come to me, it's because they really like my work and something I've made, and they just want a piece, maybe in like a particular dimension for their home. So they're often referencing my own work or like a previous piece I've made, and it's just like, can you make it in this size or in these dimensions? So that's one type of client I get. And then sometimes I get clients who really have just their own idea about what they want to do. And I like those clients too because I've taken on projects that really push me out of my comfort zone and maybe have me do things that I would not do on my own. So that can be a really fun experience to do. So, for example, like a lot of the landscape weavings I do are often for commission. So that's not necessarily something I would just do on my own, but I love creating them for clients. It's really fun. In terms of my boundaries, I have a whole procedure. So if you contact me, I have like a contact form on my website where clients can write to me. I will send you sort of this long itemized list that explains my process, explains all the steps that we need to go through, the information I need for them. So I try to get as much information from them as possible beforehand. So just things like um, size, dimensions, like what they're looking for, if there's pictures of my work they want to reference, if they have other reference pictures, like for example, if it was a landscape, like do they have photos of the place that they want? And I talk a lot about expectations with clients. This is something that I think is important. So expectations around timeline, when this will be delivered, budget, spending money back and forth, all of these things. Like it's good to talk about the whole process and be really upfront with your timeline as well. Because again, like weaving is not fast. So sometimes people reach out to me wanting work like with a quick turnaround, and I might need a 6 month lead up time, especially if I'm already booked with work too, right? So but I think if somebody really wants a piece from you, they're going to understand that and they're going to wait for it because it's a one of a kind handmade art piece, right? Like it's not Amazon. It's not going to ship overnight. So
Right.
you have to be a little patient. And I also do things now, like I ask for a deposit for my design work too, because sometimes even just the design process, I've gone through like weeks of back and forth and hours of
Yeah.
design, and then someone decides they don't want it or they ghost you.
Right.
And so I ask for a deposit up front. I won't even do design work without a deposit anymore. So these are just things that I do to protect myself and my time as an artist, especially because I'm an independent single person doing this. It's just me. I wear all the hats in my business. I have no employees, no help. I'm also like a parent. I have 2 kids. I live with chronic illness. I have a disability. So there's like a lot going on in my life. So it's important for me to be like very transparent with clients too. And I think it's just like managing those expectations and being really clear is key. But that's how I do it. And I have such great experiences with it. And I'm so grateful. All my clients are awesome. I'm so grateful that I've gotten to create pieces for them.
That's super helpful. So thank you for sharing that process. And I want to get to your recommendations. So one of them is Lisa Solomon's The Color Meditation Deck, which I have a copy of. Lisa's been on this podcast. So how are you using it? Since I know color is really important to you.
Yeah, I love that deck. I actually just did a little collab with Lisa. We did a giveaway together with my book, and we gave away a copy of her book. No, not her book, sorry, just the deck. But I have her book too. I think she's awesome. The meditation deck I find is so great. Like often people ask me how I use color or how I get inspired for color. And I have a really hard time explaining it because I actually think it's a big part of my neurodivergence and how I understand and see things. Like my use of color is completely intuitive, but I understand that it's not for everybody. So I actually like recommending Lisa's deck for other people because I think it's a really, really great tool to use if you are, some people are just really scared to use color or nervous
Yeah.
or they're not sure what goes with what. And I think the deck is this really cute and playful and accessible way to just literally play with color and become more comfortable with it. And if you don't know where to start, it gives you prompts, right? So it's a great starting place. And for myself as a creative, I really like to play around in like other mediums and with other tools, especially when I'm feeling like blocked or uninspired. I also I paint a lot. I love to paint. So playing around with the deck sometimes is just a fun exercise. I also use it with my kids. So especially my daughter who likes to art make with me. So sometimes we'll just take it out, pick a few cards and just it just gives you a prompt, right? So if you're like, oh, I want to be creative today, but I don't know what to do, it's a great tool for that.
So add that one to your holiday wish list as well. When
Yeah,
you're while
it's so
adding
good.
things to your holiday wish list, that's Lisa Sullivan's color meditation deck. And then you also recommend the Lucky Sweater app. We have featured them as well on our website, but it's a place to trade your clothes. And I think it's
Yeah.
handmade. Is it especially handmade clothes with not
No,
all.
they have
Okay.
all different categories and
Oh,
they're adding
okay.
like new ones all the time. So I got on it for there's a slow fashion community on there. So trading slow fashion clothes. I have had the best time trading on this app. I sized out of a bunch of my clothes this year, and it was really sad because having a slow fashion wardrobe is a real investment financially too. So I've been able to trade out so many of my pieces for clothes that fit me now that I love. So and then you meet people all over. It's super fun. But they also have like there's a vintage community, there's an outdoor community. So if you're into like camping and stuff, there's all that stuff. There's a kids community now. There's a me made too. So if you're into like yarn and knitting and making your own clothing, sewing, there's that too. It's really fun. It's free to join. I highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah,
It's the
and I
future.
love it is.
Yeah,
Secondhand is the future for so many
great.
different ends, for sure. So that's great. And then you, like me, love to listen to podcasts, and you wanted to recommend a few: On Being with Krista Tippett and Chaotic Creatives with Lauren Halm and Rachel Renee.
The On Being is oh, I love that podcast. It's really like just deep, thoughtful, slow conversations, which we don't have enough of in the world anymore at all. Especially we're used to these fast-paced, sound-bitey 5-second clips of everything. So in podcast world, I really go for like long form conversation. That's my favorite. I actually audiobook a lot too. I like just like listening to books. And I chose the second one because it's a fun podcast for creatives. And I think it's always good to just I know for me, like I work at home alone all the time, right? So it's a nice way to feel connected to other people who might be in your industry. Actually, Abby, I was listening to this podcast the last few days because I knew I was coming on. So I
Yeah.
listened to some interviews with people I know, which was amazing. So your podcast is great, but I'm going to listen to this one more often too now because I
Yeah.
just think it's nice to hear other people's stories and it's inspiring. And you even just pick up tips like as a maker, or artist, or business person too. So yeah.
I feel exactly the same way. It's really saved me from loneliness for
Yeah.
years, just to be able to be connected to people parasocially through their podcast interviews. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's great. You find your people that way too. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Jen, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Craft Industry Alliance podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It was super fun. Thank you.
And you've been listening to the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today's episode was brought to you by H&H Americas 2025. Dive into creativity from May 7th through 9th in Rosemont, Illinois at the crafts industry's premier trade show. Connect with industry leaders, discover trends, and ignite your passion. And join us the day before the show for H&H University, a day-long conference with outstanding education and networking right before the show opens. Thank you so much, and see you there. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals. When you become a member of Craft Industry Alliance, you get in-depth coverage of craft industry news, the opportunity to connect with fellow professionals for advice and support, and access to an educational library filled with ideas, tools, and resources to help you as you build your business. Join us at craftindustryalliance.org. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.